This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. Today is Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. It's 6:30 p.m. And if you'll join us for the pledge, we'd appreciate it. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, Randy, roll call, please.
Okay, Trustee LaRue is with us on Zoom, on the Zoom call. Will join us probably soon. Trustee Winslow.
Present.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Kangas, and our lawyer Roger Zapp is here, and our fire chief Dan Shanahan is here. And committee member, we have a library for the library report. Paul Marin's here, and I don't see anyone else.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any email public comment?
We did not.
Okay. Does anybody wish to address the board before we get started? Okay. Then I need approval of the consent agenda. Tonight that consists of approval of work session minutes of September 16th, 2021. Got an extra one in there. 2021. And regular meeting minutes of September 21st. Bills payable in the amount of $73,139.18. We have utility billing calendar for October. Correspondence not requiring board action is Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority agenda from 9/22/21 and Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority draft minutes of 8/25/21, which there are two of in here. Sorry about that. Not sure how that happened. And the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority draft minutes from 9/15/21. And just as a side note, the Marquette County Township Association October 27th meeting will be at the landfill. So if any board members want to go, I don't know, maybe we can get a bus or something if we all want to go, or however we want to work that. And it starts at 6 o'clock. And there'll be
Move to approve the consent agenda as approved.
I'll support that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Pete, you said yes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, then I just need approval of the remainder of the agenda unless somebody wants to pull something out or move it.
I'll move to approve the regular agenda as presented.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start with the library report. Paul, if you want to join us at the podium, please.
Thank you, Paul Marin, Township Advisory Council. I just have to tell you how pleasant it is to sit here on a fall night and look out these windows and see those leaves out there. Anyway, the library board met on September 28th. The director reported, and part of her report was telling the Board of Trustees of the library that she had been here and how much she enjoyed meeting with you and what a positive meeting it was. But they always have a staff member give a presentation, and they had the youth services department head give a presentation to the library board. And she talked about all the programs and story time they had, and she said they had 3,400 kids participate in all their programs. Now, I think if one kid participates in 10 programs, that counts 10, but you know, that's still a good number. They talked about, they approved the bills, and they wondered whether there were going to be any tax tribunal paybacks, and they said, seems to us that's always our problem and Marquette Township's problem, and they said they weren't aware of any big ones right now, so they were happy to report that. They said that they did not need to dip into the fund balances this year, but apparently they have a utility program where if they go over certain levels, it kicks in some higher penalty. Maybe you people are familiar with that here, you have something like that. But they said they didn't go over that, but to do that, they had to have some 85-degree days during the summer so that the air conditioning wouldn't kick in, so that they wouldn't go over that threshold and really kick in the higher electric bill. But they're all happy they didn't have to go into the fund balance. They approved a 2% wage for library staff. They approved a pandemic emergency leave, which would allow a staff member who has a family member who, like a child who has COVID and has to stay home, to be able to exercise a certain amount of leave there. They approved a new policy where NMU students can get a card if they present a valid NMU ID. And this is kind of outside of the norm, but they didn't want to have this kind of relationship with the university either. So it's a special card. They can't have all the functions that you and I can have with our library card, but they can apparently check out some stuff. Anyway, I can answer any questions you might have. It was a long meeting, and I just condensed it down to about 2 minutes because you didn't want to hear the whole hour's worth of meeting. The next library board meeting is going to be October 19th. So I don't know whether it'll be Tom Bronken or me who will be here after that meeting to report on it. But do you have any questions or any comments I can take back to the library?
Anything from the board?
Nope, thank you.
What was the 3,400 kids? Was that like for the year? For
Yeah,
Because this
yeah.
is your fiscal year, right?
Fiscal year, yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, they had 400 kids, 480 kids in the summer reading, which is the most ever that they had in a summer reading program. So,
That's great.
now, this is the first time I've really reported as a Township Advisory Council member. Is this the kind of report you expect to get?
Yep.
Okay,
And then if something comes up that we want to have you send something back to
Exactly.
the board.
you would let me know, and then I would go to the next time there's a library board meeting, let them know.
Yep.
Okay,
So Paul, you'll be back the first meeting in November, you or Tom then?
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll put that in
probably
there.
be Tom, although he's busy with some stuff. But we kind of thought we would take turns.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll put you on the
that's
agenda
fine.
then for the first meeting in November, then,
Yeah.
It'll be the second.
or second meeting in
I
November.
mean, November 2nd will be the
November
first
2nd,
meeting.
okay.
Okay. I'll see you then, or Tom will see you then.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the update. All right, next up is Lieutenant Tim Scholander. He was here a couple years ago. He works with Upset, and we've asked him to come back, kind of give us a report. We are talking about what donation we want to provide to that group with budget discussions. We're going to be having budgets this week and the next week. So that's part of the reason I asked you to come back, but whatever information you can share too, the public needs to know.
Well, I have
As much
always
as they can.
fun stories I can share, but I want to at least give you an idea first of Upset's the Upper Peninsula Substance Enforcement Team. We've been around since 1988 in one form or another. I came out of the team in 2012 and took over the lieutenant's position. And back then, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I walked in and they said, hey, this drug team's yours, you gotta make it happen. And I didn't realize that drug teams were actually funded through grants and contributions from local municipalities and just forfeiture. So how we operate is exactly that. They never told me I was gonna go out and be a fundraiser and write grants when I became a police officer, but that's the way all of the 22 different state police-led drug teams are actually operated by. So our grants, we apply for local community grants. We apply for 2% grants through tribal entities. And forfeitures, that's if bad guy drives his car from A to B to sell drugs and we arrest him, we can go through the forfeiture process of seizing that vehicle, go through some forfeiture hearings, and that vehicle would either get turned over to us after a judge's decision, and then we either sell it at auction to use those proceeds to continue to operate. And then, again, the community contributions are one of them that we get. And as of right now, we get about I think so far for this year, since October 1st, about $115,000 from local municipalities that range anywhere from, $500 up to $10,000, $15,000. And it's really just based on activity, it's based on what those entities can contribute, and just the overall amount of work that we do in some of those entities, in some of those jurisdictions. So when I walked in here in 2012, they said, hey, you've got only $82,000 left in the bank, and the team's gonna fall apart in about 3 months. So good luck with it, and you gotta find enough money to keep it running. And at that time, it was costing me about $185,000, $200,000 a year to operate the team. So I only had a couple of months ahead of me. As of right now, we're doing well. I had 12 people back then. I'm almost up to 34 people now, and our budget's good, but every year it's still a question mark because I don't have dedicated funding coming in. I've got great people that I've built some great relationships with, and I think the team has really done great work, and the people across the UP see that, and that's why they contribute. But it's kind of going to meetings like this and explaining that we're out there working hard for all of you. So that's what I walked into back then, and that's kind of where we are today. Is there a slide thing that I push, or?
No, I can control it
Okay,
from here.
well, these slides are kind of old. You can just kind of go through them. So today we have, I'll just go over what's in our area. I've got 4 teams that are spread out across the UP. I used to have one that used to cover the whole entire Upper Peninsula. So with the concept of breaking up these teams, put them in different offices, I now have Houghton County, Houghton City that said, yeah, we want to be a part of it too. I've got people from Sault Ste. Marie that said, yeah, we want to be a part of it too, because we have offices that we want to utilize more personnel and keep them, so we're not spending our time driving 3 hours just to go do investigative work. So that's how my team kind of grew over the years. So we got Marquette County, Marquette City that both put detectives on the team. I've got a multiple number of state troopers that are on the team. I've got federal agents in our Marquette office, from the DEA, ATF, Bureau of Indian Affairs. The FBI actually deputizes all of us so we can work on tribal lands. So it's a pretty unique concept team that we have, and there's not really many other teams across the entire state that have the working relationships that we have with the federal partners and the local partners at the same time. And what else is unique about it is that to take our cases to a federal court, most federal prosecutors won't take a case unless there's a federal agent that represents it. They love our team so much, we do such great work, that the federal prosecutor usually stops in our office and says, who can you get me this week, So they're reaching out to us, wanting our federal cases to take them to the federal level, which really enhances the sentencing across the area. So that's how we operate, and our operating expenses that covers vehicles, covers cell phones. And what's frustrating about it is that when a trooper comes onto our team, the state police says, okay, we'll continue to pay his salary, but you got to pay for his cell phone, you got to pay for his vehicle, you've got to cover his equipment expenses, you've got to give him enough money so he can go out there and do investigative work and develop informants and develop leads and start investigations. So that's the $185,000 that we got to come up with. So that's kind of the frustrating part, is that everybody just throws me a body, but nobody tells me how to pay for the work that they do. And that's why I'm here today. To share a couple of cases with you, I do have a couple of fun ones that I'll talk about. What's unique about the Upper Peninsula, what's unique about our area, is that the price of drugs is much more expensive than what it is in Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit. Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, all of these source cities, you could buy crystal meth, and you could buy an ounce of it for probably about $200. In the Upper Peninsula, it's gonna be anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200. So what do I get? I get drug dealers that travel to the UP because they say, I don't have the turf wars, I don't have as many police officers in my inner city areas, and I can go out, I can go with a user and hide out with them and sell drugs to people, and they won't know I exist. What's great about the UP is that we have a tight community, and we know when there's people that are from outside of the community, different vehicles that come in, so we get a lot of tips from local community, people throughout the community about when drug dealers start selling drugs, and it's obvious when people are in a house and out of house within 2 minutes, and there's a steady stream of traffic. So great community that helps us do our job. That's community involvement, and that's what we need. And we get a lot of that throughout the whole Upper Peninsula. So with those community involvements, I'll give you one of the stories is that within a week of one of these drug dealers actually being here, we were notified. When we were notified, within 24 hours, we did an undercover operation where we utilized our undercover resources and purchased drugs from that suspect. The suspect left the area. He came back a week later. We purchased narcotics from him again just to try to build our case up, because we're not only after that suspect, we're after that person in Milwaukee where they're going to get their drugs. We identified that person as well. We identified different houses that they were using. We identified different vehicles that they were using. We identified local associates that were with them. And all of the course about over the next 20 days, we identified all these things. We did a search warrant. We arrested multiple people. We seized about $6,000 in cash. Because of the suspect's criminal history in Milwaukee from prior drug dealings, we were able to explain our case to the federal prosecutor. The federal prosecutor accepted the case. The suspect pled guilty right away, and knowing that if I don't plead guilty and I try to fight it, federal sentencing is going to even be that much higher. That person went away for 14 years in federal prison. And that was a case just last year. So that was a quick one for us. But we also arrested 4 other people locally that were not only using drugs, but they were dealing heavily for that person. And we work with the prosecutor's office to try to identify who's a victim of drug use and who would be better represented in maybe drug treatment court, and who should go to way to state prison. And, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is not everybody should go to jail. There are some dealers out there that are only doing that just to support their own habit. And they have good families, they have good support structures, so we really work with the prosecutor's office on trying to identify who would be better suited for some type of drug treatment program. But it's great when we have somebody who's coming to our area and going away for 14 years and they're not going to be distributing drugs anymore. That actually happened right here in Marquette Township in one of the hotels where we ended up making the arrest. One other case I'd really briefly talk about, which happened at a different hotel. It was kind of interesting. We had a tip that there was a suspect that actually left drugs in a hotel room and hid it in the hotel room. That's actually pretty common. As we were going there to go and get the drugs, I met with the hotel manager, and they were bringing me to the room. And as we were about halfway down the parking lot, one of the people drove in and went into this room, and I knew that from my past experiences, I knew that they were a dealer. We waited outside a little bit while we could get enough detectives there, because we were going to have to do a search warrant. And they kind of had an idea that we were coming. So they left the hotel room. We went in the hotel room almost at the same time. And, you know, long story short, 3 people went to jail. Out of those 3 people, one of them went to jail for got sentenced to 7 years in prison. The other one got 4 years in prison. The third one ended up getting, I think, 5 years in prison. The interesting thing about it is that about 8 years ago, I arrested the sister to one of the people that was there, and for the same drug, they're still doing their 17-year prison sentence term in federal prison. So that family doesn't like me too much, or the upset team, but don't sell drugs, you know. So the other interesting part of that story is that all the hotel guests kind of saw this happen, and some of them were kind of cheering us on a little bit, because they saw the drug dealing going on in and out the last 2 days. And we actually had received a tip right before then. So I guess it's a little satisfaction that there's people out there that care about their community and care about the places that they visit, and they're calling in those tips, and we're able to respond in such a quick time frame. So, you know, I have stories upon stories like that, but what we see here in Marquette Township is you have a large number of businesses, you have a large number of hotels, and those are destinations for drug dealers that come in and out of the area from Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit. So we've really built some good connections with a lot of the hotel businesses, even with a lot of the people that work at the larger box stores, because those are also destinations where people meet in a parking lot. There's different things that they do at those stores involving sending moneygrams and things like that, that are related to drugs. So I guess that's why I'm here today, is to say thank you for your contributions in the past, and we hope that you can continue to support us moving forward. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is there anything else on the slides?
I do have a ton of slides, but you can flip through a couple of them if you want. This is a little larger scale of where we are today and how we're organized. You can keep going. We have a board of directors. So even though my bosses are from the state police, I actually have a board of directors that I report to. Our last meeting was actually here last month, and we meet every quarter. And it's great when you have, this is the other thing, is that what's unique about it is that, you know, there's the uniformed police officers that those chiefs, those sheriffs, they take them out of uniform and they lose them. They don't get them anymore. They give up a body in their hometown, in their county, and they give them to me. And they trust us to work with them. So it's pretty impressive to me that they rely on us so much by giving a body. But what they get in return is that if they give me a body, whenever they want a body, I'll bring 12 of them any day of the week. So that's what I like about our board of directors. They put a lot of faith in us, and we respond back quickly. You can keep going. I'll give you a few more. There's a list of some of our board of directors. You can keep going through. You know, this is kind of how our offices are broken up today. Before, I had an office in Gwynn, and we were driving 3 hours to go do investigations. You can keep going through. These are just administrative personnel. This used to be what our budgets kind of used to look like. Paying for vehicles, paying for costs. We do work with the city really well, so we have some Marquette City really helps us out quite a bit with storage and buildings and whatnot. Anyway, most of those slides are kind of old, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
What do you think? Any questions?
Well, I have some questions.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Linda.
So we wanted you to come so we could understand the funding better.
Okay.
And so your donations come from all over the UP, all the small burbs, all the big cities, everyone donates, or not everyone donates?
Not everyone donates. A long time ago, a few lieutenants before me, they had kind of gone around and tried to create some agreements to where you could donate $1 per capita and you come in. That's faded over the years. So when I came in, it was very few and random ones that donated. I do a lot of drug awareness presentations because I think that's also a part of it, is you have to build a good relationship with the community. I think you have to educate people, and you have to do the enforcement work on top of that. So as of right now, we have some of the more, well, for instance, like Schoolcraft County, they give me only like $1,000, but as a whole, all the townships, all of the municipalities within Schoolcraft County, they'll come together, and it ends up totaling around $8,000. And that's tough for them when they have real budget issues and other things that they need to fund, and they already have their police force there. So I'll give you an example, like Chocolate Township usually gives me about $5,000 a year, City of Ishpeming $10,000 a year. Iron County, it's tough for uniformed police officers. They would give me one if they had the ability to, but they don't. So between the county sheriffs and the their prosecutor, they ended up giving me about $15,000 a year. But they need our presence, they need our help, and they know they'll be there the moment they need something. So our contributions kind of go like that. It's just, I think it was a lot of what value that they see in us. I think in Marquette County, you don't see the value as much. Why? Is it because there's so many entities going on. There's all these different avenues, and not just the law enforcement avenues. You have a lot of programs here, a lot of funding. But I'll tell you, our presence in Marquette County is huge. Marquette City sees that. Marquette County gives me a detective, so does Marquette City. But I gotta find the funding to actually pay for their vehicles and pay for their cars, and to do undercover work, it probably costs me about $60,000 a year to go out and purchase drugs in some form or another, or do our physical, in the dirt drug work. And that money has to come from somewhere. And when the funding isn't there, that's the last thing I want to cut, because that's where the activity is, and that's where you get the reduced amount of drugs coming in the community with the more that I do in that area.
So the state of Michigan does not provide any funding?
So the state of Michigan, they pay for my salary, they pay for all the troopers' salaries. They do give me some vehicles for the troopers that are on the team. They pay for all of the computers that I have. They give one to the locals. Give me all of my 800 megahertz radios. They give me around $22,000 in equipment expenses that kind of are on the side. But when it comes down to that 185 I need, none of it goes towards, none of it's from the state. I try to take as much as I can from the state to use to keep the team alive, but there's still that $150,000 that I need to go and try to find. And right now I have about 2 years to 2.5 years of funding in
So you
the
have
bank.
a
So if I
fund.
didn't get $1, I'd be okay.
Okay.
But in 2 years from now, I might be really groveling here, so.
So Chalkley gives 5,000, the city of Marquette gives
So the city of Marquette gives me a body.
a
And most of the
person.
municipalities that give me a body, they can't afford to give me anything else.
And the county, Marquette County gives you a person?
Correct.
And so, let's say, what about the other townships in Marquette County?
So it varies. Some of the other ones out west are not as well-funded, and there's not as much activity out there for us, but, I was pretty impressed with, I'm gonna forget which township it is, that we did some drug investigation work, and as soon as they kind of saw the name that was in the papers, they stepped up and just gave me $2,500. So I think they see the value in it when they know that we're really looking at those dealers.
It sounds like there's value in it for everyone, though, even the people that aren't stepping forward and helping support.
Correct. And
Correct, and so.
And I'm not lying to you when I say this, and I probably shouldn't say it, but if you don't give me any money, I'm still gonna be here, and we're still gonna come when you need us. But we do need the money to help it survive, and I think that's what's important about Upset. It's Marquette gives us a body, knowing that their body could very well go all the way over to Baraga and help Baraga one day. And drugs aren't a city problem, they're not a county problem, they're a UP problem, and Marquette City sees the value in that, Marquette County sees the value in that, and all those municipalities, because they give me those bodies.
Yeah, they're really a people problem.
It is.
Yeah, so, okay, yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that, something is equitable here. And, I know that we have probably the hub of where people would come. I mean, I know that. But then again, we have to have the funding and the support of the community residents to support this. So we have to be able to explain it to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
John, go ahead.
I just want to say thanks for everything you're doing. Thank you very much.
Well, it's our pleasure. I appreciate the support, and I gotta thank your fire department too, because there's been times where when we do meth labs, and under the OSHA guidelines, we can't do it without a charged fire hose whenever a meth lab is found inside a residence. So that's where we're harassing them at certain times of the night to help us out with being there, just in case a meth lab doesn't go well for us. So we're in the full meth lab suits where we're ready for the chemical blast to kind of happen, and your fire department's been invaluable over the years, so thank you.
Thanks again.
Thanks.
Pete, any questions?
No, I'm well aware of what's going on there, so I was involved in, I had a rental that I gave to Upset years ago, so I know what they do and how they can control it, and I'm all for them.
All right, thank you.
right,
We
thank
sure
you very
appreciate
much.
the
Thank you.
information.
Thanks, Deb.
Chief, you're up, introducing your staff.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Just want to, first of all, say thank you, Lieutenant. They do, I will let you know too, they do all the dirty, we stand outside with a charged hose line. They do everything else. I will let you know that. And tonight, all we're doing is just introducing a couple of them, our members. And then we're going to start with seniority and go with Dave Winslow. I think Dave's been with us 30 years just the other day. Dave's probably our most senior engineer, and he's, come on up and introduce yourself, Dave.
As Dan said, my name is Dave Winslow. I've been a resident of Marquette Township since 1978, when my wife and I built our home here and raised our family. I worked as an electrician for about 43 years and then I retired. And I joined the department in 1991 and have enjoyed many years of service and hope to continue with a few more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave's also our current membership. He's our treasurer also right now. And then our next one, Mark O'Neill, been with the department almost 18 years. He was our treasurer. Dave's doing a little better because I think he collects 1 penny a month more interest. We get 6 cents a month on our interest, where Mark only got 5. So, and no, Mark got a promotion at work. That's why he stepped down from that position. But Mark O'Neill has been with us 18 years. Mark,
Yeah, he made sure he brought Dave along. He didn't want me to get a big head. Being a long-serving member, I thought I'd have one of the new guys with me. But yeah, I moved out here in 1999 with my family. My grandfather was a city firefighter, retired, so I was had an interest in it. And I think the greatest thing about being on the department for me, moving out here, I born and raised in Marquette, but I didn't know a lot of people out in the township, and getting to meet people like the Winslows, Shanahan, Chief Shanahan, his daughter and my daughter were friends, so we knew each other anyways. But when they talk about it being a brotherhood and a sisterhood, it's the real deal. It really is. And been happy to serve and enjoyed my time. And I wish I could be more active, but I work for the city of Marquette. I've been there for 31 years, going on 32. And I actually, in a roundabout way, work for the township because I'm in charge of the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant. So I work with John, Lenny a lot. But
Sorry about that.
yeah. The fire department's in good hands. So it's been a good ride.
That's why we wanted to get to know all you people. I was gonna say all you guys, but that's not appropriate.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks a lot for coming.
Mark.
Okay, community linkage. The only thing I wanted to share is we've been trying to get a board photo, but we'll shoot for the next meeting. October 19th at 6 o'clock.
Hold that thought. I won't be here.
You won't be here?
Nope, so
Okay, cross that off. Don't
Try-
put it on.
try to make it for, I did suggest maybe on the 14th for a work session. Maybe we could get a quick photo that night or that
Oh,
day.
Thursday?
Thursday, the 14th, so.
Okay.
If everyone's gonna be here that day, we could try to get a photo that day.
I'll try to send you all messages reminding you, put your tie and your spats on. Okay, October 14th. And I think we're meeting at 2?
2 o'clock, yeah, so about 2 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good.
We still have to dress up?
You know, kinda. Up to you. Don't come in your pajamas. All right, next up then, consider appointment of Karen Blake to the Road Committee with the term ending 12/31/21. Karen, come on up to the podium. Thanks for coming. It's nice to meet you finally. We had a long conversation. Karen is bringing a bunch of experience. If you want to share a little bit about yourself for the board.
My name is Karen Blake. I've lived in the township for about 5 years. Before that, I lived in the Chicago suburbs for many, many years. And while I was there, I worked for residential developers and specifically with infrastructure, everything up to the beginning of building houses, so that roads, curbs, gutters, sewers, all that good stuff. And I also was secretary for a Capital Improvements Commission for one of the suburbs in Chicago, and they also took care of roads from the dirt right up to the final asphalt. So I am somewhat familiar with what happens, with what the needs are for roads, and I'm so excited to be able to give back a little bit in the township. I have so enjoyed living here for the past 5 years and hope to be here for many, many more.
Great. So the gentleman on the screen is, I think you're the chair, right, Pete? If I look
Yes.
at my notes right, yep. So I'll get her information to you, and the planning commission, some of that gets funneled through Jason for meetings and information. I think you said you got online and looked at some of like the bylaws and some of
Yes.
she's already done some research, so she kind of knows what she's getting into. So I'll make sure you get that information to include her in your mailing list. So you didn't have a meeting tonight, right? Weren't you on tonight?
We're supposed to have been, yes, but we're still waiting for information on software and stuff like that.
Yep,
Road stuff.
I know. Eric's working on it. So that means the 2nd, November 2nd, you'll be doing?
Yes.
Okay, that's your next meeting. So just for your back of your mind, Karen, in case somebody forgets you, November 2nd is your next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm making the motion to accept Karen for the term ending 12/31/21 in the road committee.
I'll support.
Motion and support. Any questions, comments, Ernie?
Now, it's only about 2, 3 months away. We have to bring her back up here again and redo it again then?
She'll get, we don't necessarily have to go through
Reappointed.
the reappointment, yeah. Andra should be starting pretty quickly, our secretary in the office, questioning everybody. So I figured she'd get a couple meetings under her belt. If she really hated us, then she wouldn't have to re-up. But
I
Andra
cannot imagine that happening.
she'll be contacting everybody to make sure, do they want to come again or whatever. So you'll get an email, and all you have to do is say, yes, I'm fine. And this is a 3-year term, and the terms are staggered, so.
Lynn,
Through 24, yes, sir.
I think she's already reappointed.
Just by default, because you said so, right? Okay. Okay? Yeah, that's it? You didn't have a question?
No, I've looked at her qualifications and I welcome her to the board appointment.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you, we appreciate you coming, too. All right, next up, consider resolution reaffirming prior intent to vacate certain undeveloped portions of Wright Street and Cox Avenue within the plat of Trowbridge Park. I think that's,
Attorney Zappa.
yes, that's what I was gonna go for.
This is something that was actually begun by the Marquette County Road Commission in 1987. Abandonment and vacating is a 2-step process. The Road Commission abandoned now 34 years ago. For reasons that aren't entirely clear, there was never any follow-through. That was brought to the attention of the Township Board 15 years ago by your prior assessor, Tim Hayden. No consultation was sought on how to finalize or do that correctly. So what happened is the Township Board in 2006 apparently adopted or passed a motion to vacate, but that isn't sufficient under state law to accomplish it. There has to be a resolution that then gets recorded with the Register of Deeds office, and then a certified copy has to be sent to, even the department name has changed in the meantime since this all started, but the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs in Lansing gets a copy of that as well. This is something that has been started. I know that at least some of the taxpayers along those streets have been paying taxes on their 1/2 share of the street for many years. It's just because people thought that the process had been completed years and years ago. This is more or less a formality to accomplish what was begun many years ago. There's also a procedure, a question of whether the Trowbridge Park plat must be amended. I've conferred with the attorney for the resident, one of the residents, and we've concluded that while that would be desirable, it's not mandatory for the township to incur that expense. The township board will recall that we have actually amended the plat periodically when streets are abandoned or lot boundaries are changed, such as most recently when Lions Field was expanded. We vacated and abandoned one block of Erie Avenue between Cherry and Summit Streets. And that actually involves amendment of the plat, actually involves filing a lawsuit and notifying people within a certain circumference of the area, and including all of the utility companies who run utilities through that portion of the plat and so forth. That is not what I am recommending here. Any resident who owns property within the platted area is free to file a plat amendment and undertake that expense. It's a lengthy, fairly expensive process, so any of the residents, if they wish to actually amend the plats, which would in turn amend or modify the boundaries of their respective lots, are free to undertake that. Finally, the Road Commission in 1987 did reserve, through the abandoned portion, an easement for utilities. And that's recorded at the Register of Deeds office. The resolution that you have before you tonight also includes a reservation of a utility easement for the benefit of the township, if for whatever reason that might become a convenient thing to use in the future.
Randy?
I'll move to approve the resolution reaffirming prior intent to vacate certain undeveloped portions of Wright Street and Cox Avenue within the plat of Trowbridge Park.
Support.
Okay. Bernie?
I just have a question for Roger. Now, the individuals on the border of this property, does this automatically go to them, or they have to go through the legal process to get it attached to them?
This basically conveys it to them, conveys the ownership interest. The plat amendment I was referring to only fixes the plat. For example, if you buy lot 42 and half of lot 43, the plat will show a whole lot 43 with a line down the middle of it, if you don't amend the plat. It's this action that basically confers ownership to the people that are adjacent. There's a case decided by the Michigan Court of Appeals just a couple of years ago that indicates the plat amendment is not necessary for ownership interest. So this is the action. And as a practical matter, to play devil's advocate, there's a fair argument that given the lapse of time, that those property owners have a pretty compelling interest in that strip already anyway, regardless of this action. But this cleans up some housekeeping issues that have now been languishing out there for more than 3 decades. So that it eliminates or at least certainly reduces any future potential for confusion on the issue.
Anything else? John?
I guess I just wanted to mention that you might get comfortable dealing with these resolutions here in the coming months because there's potentially a few more on the way.
Linda?
And I just want to reaffirm that the people have been paying the taxes for all these years. And that says to me that we have assumed that that was their property. So yes, they have a very compelling argument.
This is a resolution, so we need a roll call.
Yes, roll call vote as clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee Marks?
Yes.
Trustee Winslow?
Yes.
Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Everson?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, consider MTA 2021-22 board-approved legislative policy platform. I mentioned to you at the last meeting that I was going to include this for you to read. It's just a couple pages of what Michigan Township Association is recommending for their association this next year. And these are the things that specifically Judy Allen and the rest of their staff will go to the legislature and either propose or support or engage or introduce. So this is due November 29th, and I wanted you to have a chance to read it and look at it. If you want to propose it tonight the way it is, if you want to make changes, I can send them an email. But I did plan on putting it on the next agenda too, just in case you wanted to just talk about it tonight. If you agree with any of this or don't agree, or, so I'm looking for some discussion or.
We'll just take it in and next meeting we'll
Yep.
go for it.
Any questions for me now, or it's pretty straightforward? I did have a question for you though, Randy. In the elections on the second page, it does say permit the option for nonpartisan township offices to be approved by the township board and the electors. That means that we wouldn't have to declare a party when we sign up to be on the board, on the ballot. Do you have a issue with that as far as how you operate, or does it make a difference?
No, you can actually do that now if you want. It's just a little different process because you don't have to be a party member. You can be an independent and run. You just a little different filing mechanisms than what.
Different deadlines too.
And different deadlines than what a party office has. So I really don't, I think they should stagger terms rather than worry about this, but.
That would be nice. Maybe that's something we can add too,
Yeah.
if it's something the board feels is important. How about the last one? It says allow option to increase the active number of registered voters per precinct.
The state has already did that, and some of this stuff is gonna be under legislation, so, yeah, they bumped up, the precinct amounts, but it doesn't affect us.
Okay.
It will not affect us for many years in the future, so.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of legislation for elections these days, so it'll be a revolving door until next year and see where we're at.
When we get the MTA insights, emails, there's at least half of them involve elections. There's something changing every 5 minutes.
Yeah, they're tweaking the elections, and like this year, it's an off year, so there's just small elections, which they're trying some of these proposals to see if they're gonna work, but we'll see what they do for next year. Because they're talking about going from an August primary maybe to a June primary. So that's a big significant change for the voters, because they'd be looking for August and it could be in June, so. So we'll see where they go with it. it's just, like I said, it's just a continuous update on where they're going with this stuff, so.
I don't know if you noticed too, on the environment one, it says preserve landfill capacities by directing appropriate materials to waste utilization facilities and support an increase in the state tipping fee to a rate competitive with nearby states while preserving a local tipping fee option. So I thought you'd get a kick out of that, John, because here we go again with more fees for tipping fees and stuff. So anyway, we'll bring this back next time. If there's something else you want to add, we can submit it. Or if you don't want to submit it, that's fine too. Okay?
So we submit it with our support to go with what, so all we're doing is supporting what they put forward and giving them
If you
ideas
agree
for
with
the
all of them, yeah.
future.
And if there's something
Okay.
you want to add, we did this a few years ago. We added about 6 or 7 things to it that.
And did they get added?
A couple of them specifically, yeah. But I think they poll everybody, in the state, all 1,240 townships, and figure out what's important by the majority.
Do they usually provide this information at the spring conference where people can actually be presented with this other than just written like this? Because I agree with Randy, a lot
go
of this
through
is
it.
repetitive. It's already in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've
so-
had this for a while, but I didn't want to bring it up in June, knowing that it was going to change, and then
Yeah,
we'd
and it's
had
gonna
until
continue.
November, in
Yeah.
case we had something specific we wanted to add.
I did note that they were writing something about permit members of the public body to participate in public meetings remotely. And so I thought that was quite interesting because, again, a reason why we need to upgrade our remote access here and have it smoother. But who knows, you're right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll do that again. Consider dissolving the safety committee. This is also, as I was updating my committee list, and I handed you this at the last meeting too, just in case, because you're all on different on different committees. I wanted to make sure I had the right information on the right dates. So I checked with Lenny Bodinas, Superintendent of Public Works, to see what he knew about the safety committee, and he didn't know anything about it. As far as he knew, nobody had met. He said he believed he was a representative a bunch of years ago as a staff member. And then I checked with Chief Shanahan to see if he knew anything about it, and he didn't know anything. John and I visited about it. Pete didn't know anything about it. So because, as my memo stated, the requirements for each of those departments are so specific and so tied to state and or federal regulations, it just seemed kind of silly to even have it on here. So I'm looking for thoughts. Randy?
Yeah, I was on there probably 16 years ago, and it really didn't meet that much then either, so it's probably time just to, like you said, that each department has its specific safety requirements, and they are doing it within the department. So there's no need to have really a safety committee, really. So I'll move to dissolve that committee.
Support.
Okay, motion and support. Any comments? Ernie?
By dissolving this now, we're relying on those 2 departments to have their own safety group. Now, will they also then communicate with the manager of what's going on, so that can hopefully filter back up to us if there's something going on that we're not aware of, and that need to be done in that too? So, because you have them sitting out there doing their own thing, but they should also be referring back to someone else as to what's happening in that too, so.
Yep. They do report to the manager. John, you can comment, but they've got licensures that they have to keep up and everything.
Well, the biggest thing with safety is you have to follow the requirements of your field. OSHA specifically has their rules. I know National Fire Safety Protection has its own rules. I probably have that one wrong, but just because I don't have as much experience in that division as I do in Public Works. But if you don't have somebody in each department that's designated the responsible party for safety in that department, it's gonna fall on somebody that's not involved enough to stay on top of it. Having a committee is great, but when you try to have a committee that has this cross-department responsibility when the safety requirements are so different on certain things, I think you begin to distract yourself from the more important thing, and that's providing the right safety training and education for each department on its own. And also, I wanted to try to get rid of this committee because Pete beat me up too much on the roads committee. I had to give up on that one.
Lynn,
Yep, go ahead, Pete.
by dissolving this committee does not get away from the safety on the departments. Now, I've talked to John today a little bit about, and they have little safety meetings that they talk about safety and stuff like that. And that's good, and you almost have to have it because we have our people out in the roads. We have smoother roads, more cell phones and stuff like that. And so I would like to see, a lot of the companies have different rules and regulations when you stop alongside the road where you put your cones and that so that you get noticed. And that could be a step in the future that we have a little book or a little thing to say where to put when you get out of the car, where to put it. The cable company has it, the mine company has it, different places. I know we used to have a SWIFT, they have it too. It's just to protect the people working out in the road. And like John and myself talked about it today a little bit about it. And I think we all agree. We want our people to come to work and we want them to go home safely. So anything we can do, and that's why the big reason they have safety meetings in the departments, because it refers just to that department. And the guys, they don't have to laugh about some other safety thing somewhere else because it involves their lives. So it's important that they have them within, but something like this, I think you're just well apart, just to get rid of it, to take care of the safety within the department.
Okay, Linda?
So safety committees long ago were set up so that employees had a place to go to address safety issues. So it wasn't just about the safety on the road that you're talking about, the department safety. Safety committees were set up for safety within the workplace. So I'm assuming, and maybe I shouldn't be, that there is something within this part of the township workforce that safety issues are addressed. Carpeting, doors that shut or don't shut, lighting. So that was very popular probably 16 years ago. But I agree, times have changed, and it can be addressed in departments as long as it is addressed in departments. And it should be in your meeting minutes that safety issues were addressed. Otherwise,
We keep specific files of all of our safety training and meetings.
yep. So with that, if you don't want a committee that hasn't met anyways, why would we waste our?
I would also say along the lines of what Linda is saying, if we start to hear complaints from employees that safety is an issue here, we can resurrect a committee at the next meeting, but also management isn't doing its job. So there should be some really hard questions coming my way and the department heads' directions to find out why our employees are complaining about. Most employers have taken a completely different look at safety in the current day compared to when I was a young kid just starting to work in all of the places I have, because they know it's too costly to not run a safe work environment for your employees. One, because when they do get hurt, the expense of dealing with the injury itself, but also what are you going to be, what's your liability there, right? So, and I think Attorney Zappa's not our labor attorney, but if he was, he would probably also say it's in our best interest to stay on top of this stuff because it'll be much cheaper in the long run.
Yep, he's shaking his head behind you, so he agreed too. Okay, any other thoughts?
I just wanted to comment that I can't speak for Public Works, but like the fire department, NFPA, has very strict guidelines for all things done on and off the fire ground, and you just do not deviate from it, period. So they're all being protected just through the National Fire Protection Association.
And that's what I asked the chief. I said, do you have a crossover, or did you ever, as far as you know, even when he was a firefighter, younger? And he said, no, we don't have anything to do with Public Works. He just remembered being on the committee once. Maybe you were on it at the same time. But he said he didn't remember doing anything, so.
I would suggest that one time a year, the two department heads could meet to discuss any type of cross-training that might be applicable, where either department is assisting on the work site of the other department, what things you need to know and be aware of. For instance, we just had upset in the room. Our Public Works employees needed training on recognizing meth labs. If you enter a home to replace a meter and you stumble on a meth lab, you don't kick over that Gatorade bottle. You stay as far away as possible and you get out and you notify the right people, and you don't go back until you know it's safe to go back. Simple things like that. They're the ones on the back end that have to go and stand by while the cleanup happens, right? So all of these things, if we're communicating on a, maybe quarterly is more appropriate, just because there's new emerging issues that you have to be aware of. And then each department head can go back to their own department and make sure that the right training is happening. And I can tell you, the amount of training that the fire department has to go through for their fire scenes, we don't want to expend township resources to get our Public Works department to that level unless they are also serving the fire department. And some of them do, but ultimately we want to make sure that we're focusing the right training on the right employees. And with the committee, you tend to start maybe blurring that too much.
Okay, anything else? Okay. We have a motion and support, right?
Yes.
That was long. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, consider strategic planning session for Thursday, October 28th. I did have a conversation with Susan Radwan. We had to do a little bit of negotiating. I don't know if, she was assuming this was with and without expenses or not. But she did agree to $3,000, and she did ask if we could change the day. She has an all-day meeting on Tuesday, so she would travel then on Wednesday and be here Thursday. So I wanted to see what thoughts were. Does the date have a, I didn't even check, I normally in my calendar. Thursday, October 28th, and it would be from 9 to 5.
9 to 5?
Yes, 9 to 5. With lunch. I thought that'd make him feel better. Does that work for everybody?
October the 25th?
28th. It's a Thursday.
And that wasn't what we first said, Lynn?
We
I
said
can't be
Wednesday.
here.
Because she had said originally.
I had the 27th written down.
They're changing it to the 28th, if possible.
I don't have a problem with
And-
that day.
Time?
9 to 5.
9 to 5, all day.
I can't be here afternoon,
Can't-
but that's all right. Go ahead.
You stay for lunch and then you can go. Pardon? You can stay for lunch and then you can go.
That's all right, that's how I started.
Well, if the board's okay with that.
Yeah, I'm fine.
We can gear whatever Susan wants to cover in the morning for you, if there's something specific that, whatever her process is, just make sure it's in the morning.
So she's gonna be here on the 28th,
Right.
Yep,
and she's gonna be here at what time?
for 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
in the community
Okay, and
room.
I'll be out of here by about noon.
Okay,
I can't stay after that.
okay.
Fine.
Committed.
We'll have an early lunch.
You can have my lunch.
Okay,
Okay.
Lynn, I'd just like to mention that my schedule is available. My coaching responsibilities will be over by then, so the weekend prior.
good
So I'm
deal.
clear.
Good deal.
Okay, so I'll move to schedule a strategic planning work session on October 28th, which is a Thursday, from 9 to 5.
Okay,
That has to be posted.
yep. I'll support it. All in
I'll
favor?
second.
Okay, Pete's fine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
So I'll post that tomorrow or the next day, and we'll get that agenda going.
Okay,
Also, there is funding in the contracted services account to pay for this, so we did verify we're covered on that end.
yep, there would have been a, approval sheet in there, but John and I crossed our wires, and he did let me know afterward that he does have the money in, contracted services. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, Randy, you're up. Discuss Marquette County Apportionment Commission.
Okay, so at the county clerk's meeting a few weeks ago, the county clerk informed me that it's been 10 years and the county is now reapportioning them themselves again, which means they have the opportunity to change the amount of commissioners they have and redraw their district boundaries. And I said that's probably something that this board should know about, because it drastically affects us, because we are in 2 districts right now. And it's up to this board. Do you like it the way it is? Do you want to see a change? Do you want to do nothing? Do you want to, you can go as individuals also to do any input. But the county clerk said, and unfortunately they had 2 meetings, but the notice in the packet is the last meeting, which is this Friday, October 8th at 2 o'clock. There's Zoom, you can either go there or there's Zoom options available. And on the thing there, if you want to give your input as a citizen. But that's where we are at. And the only comment that I gave to the county clerk, and it's not from this board, it was my opinion only, is I'd like to see an odd number of commissioners, not even. Because if you get a six, it's currently 6, and if you get a 3-3 vote, nothing passes all the time. So I'd like to see an odd number, which is either 5 or 7. They can either do, they can go up to 21, but that doesn't make sense. So I would like to see either 5 or 7 commissioners. And then actually our attorney, Roger Zappa, has some history about where we were with this 10 years ago. So if Roger wants to chime in now.
Sure, some of you would recall that we went from 9 commissioners to 6 commissioners, and this happens every time there's a new census. There's state law that requires a redistricting or a reapportionment, because the concept is that each district is supposed to be as nearly equal in population as possible. So every 10 years is the official count to see who lives where and how many people there are in the city, in each of the townships within the county, city of Negaunee, city of Ishpeming, and so forth. So it's time again. You'll also recall that that was the time when they split Marquette Township into 2 separate districts, which had never occurred before, and interestingly enough, no other township has ever been split, to my knowledge. We actually filed a suit to challenge that, and it has to be brought by a resident. So your former supervisor, Dennis Limita, was the plaintiff in that suit, and the original jurisdiction for that suit is within the Court of Appeals. We didn't get terribly far with that, but I think the message was made in terms of there is a list in descending order of importance of factors that need to be considered when redistricting or reapportioning. And the top one is that they need to be, all districts shall be single-member districts and as nearly of equal population as is practical. And by single-member districts, putting Marquette Township in 2 districts, that's not what that means. That means there's one representative for every district that's created. The next one is that all districts must be contiguous. In other words, they have to touch each other. So it doesn't work to have Marquette Township and, let's say, Ely Township or Michigami Township paired together as a district. Currently, one of our districts is together with Powell Township, and then with other various portions of the city are how they're apportioned. And keep in mind that for the city of Marquette, there are currently somewhere around 20,000 people in the city, and I believe that's not counting the inmates, because inmates can't be counted for purposes of districting because they can't vote. So the city must be apportioned because there have to be a minimum of 5 commissioners to a maximum of 21, as Clerk Rattari indicated. So to divide up the 20,000 residents, you can't do that unless you divide up the city of Marquette into districts. But then the question is, what about the rest of the townships and the city of Ishpeming and the city of Negaunee and so forth? How are those going to be paired? And that's the job that will be done at the redistricting, reapportionment committee level coming up very shortly. So it's something to keep a close eye on. It's a very important issue. It can affect, for example, whether your vote is diluted somewhat in electing a commissioner. Because right now you are, half the township is voting for one commissioner and the other half the township is voting for a different commissioner because the township has been split into 2 districts. Whereas if you were one district with another adjoining township or 2 other adjoining townships, then those votes would not be diluted, wouldn't be split in 2. All of the votes, in theory at least, could be cast for a single candidate of choice. Now, the flip side of that is, well, now you have 2 representatives on the Board of Commissioners versus 1. So there are arguments both ways, pro and con on that, but...
Not when they're both from the same city.
Well, that's the argument that was raised in the Court of Appeals and so forth. But just going down the list, there's also a criteria that says townships shall be divided only if necessary to meet the population standard. Well, we had been, Marquette Township had been in a single district forever over the preceding years, and the former manager and I sat down and came up with multiple proposed plans that would work in being very nearly equal districts. In fact, in a couple of the hypothetical ones that we came up with in pairing different jurisdictions, there was less of a deviation in the number of residents in the districts we were putting together than what the committee ultimately adopted in 2011. Be that as it may, the Court of Appeals disagreed with us and said, well, it's good enough, pretty much, and let it pass through. But this is a very, very important issue, and it's at the forefront again. And in my opinion at least, by just being heard and challenging that 10 years ago, I think we made our point.
Ernie, you had your
I
hand
have
up.
a question, because we are broken into 2 that now at this point in time. If we come to one big one, we're still gonna have to have 2 polling because of the population in that too. So that's gonna have to have a break somewhere in that.
You will have 2 precincts.
That's, yes.
But your precincts are different than just breaking the township into 2 units for purposes of the county board of commissioners. You-
Understand
Yeah,
that.
the-
I'm just saying, if we went together as one, we're still gonna have to have 2 precincts. regardless, and
Absolutely,
we have to
yes.
have some way to divide precincts in that too.
Yes, apples and oranges.
Right.
But, because I don't have right in front of me to, let's say there are 3 districts in the city. I'm not sure if there are or not. You could have 3 commissioners that theoretically represent a portion of the city, but you could have 6 precincts. And that's just the place you vote, is the precinct, so.
Randy?
Well, talking to the county clerk, I know that she doesn't, they're gonna draw the map based on precincts, because she don't wanna split precincts, because that's confusing for everyone. So what happened in 2010 is we split Marquette Township into 2 precincts. We were always one. So they couldn't split Marquette Township into 2 county districts, because we were all one precinct before this happened. So they had an opportunity when we split, and we had to do it because we were over, and state law said we had to split. So we split, so we had the south half was precinct 2, the north half is precinct 1. So the county, I think, took advantage of that and put precinct 2 with the city, and that's how we got split. My opinion is, I think we should ask the county apportionment committee, we'd like to have Marquette Township precincts 1 and 2 back in the same county district. And that isn't hard to do. I mean, all they gotta do is redraw the map, so we're in the same district again.
Roger?
And keep in mind, there are multiple other townships that have more than 1 precinct at which they vote.
But see, if we wouldn't have, if we wouldn't
No, I
have.
understand that,
If we
but-
wouldn't have split into 2 precincts at that time, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion right now.
Right, but my point was strictly that it could have been done to other townships, and it wasn't, that have more than 1 precinct. If they felt that that was the only way to meet the numerical standards, and there were probably about half a dozen different possibilities on where the boundaries could be drawn, that were ultimately rejected in the process. So,
Linda, did you?
Yeah, I have to say, I support being one group,
One district.
one district. I think we have more of a voice being one district than we do being split into 2 districts. We are very diluted down with 2,000 members in each.
Well, actually, we're really diluted because there's only 1,000 residents in precinct 2, and there's 2,000 in precinct 1, so
Yeah.
there's a real disparity on the south half of the township as far
So,
as.
do you need a motion to bring
Well-
that to them, or?
I think what we should discuss first is what we want as a board. And I'd say that, number 1, we want to be together again. And I think we should have an odd number of county commissioners. And I think maybe those are the 2 things we just tell them.
Support.
Yeah, we want to be one district, or we want to be one group again, or one district. And we want an odd number of commissioners. And I don't think that's unreasonable.
So who does that?
Well, what we would do is we direct the supervisor to probably write a letter or attend that meeting and express our concerns to that committee that this is what we would like. And at least we are on the record being heard that this is what this board wants. We can't do anything other than that.
Okay. Does that sound good to the rest of you guys?
So,
I think it would be good to have that proposal put on paper so that the public here in Marquette Township could read that. I think it, just giving it to the responsibility of the supervisor isn't really fair. I think you'll do a fine job of it, but I think the public needs to know that we got taken last time
Well-
Very foolish representative.
Well, the problem we have, John, is unfortunately, I wasn't aware of this until 2 weeks ago, and they had unfortunately their first 2 meetings within that week. So this is the last meeting for public input. So we have till Friday, October 8th at 2 o'clock. So I'm thinking by directing the supervisor to write a letter, so it's in record and on paper, that we
And
can,
also attend.
and we can show the residents that
Yeah.
this is what we sent to that committee, and at least we're on record showing that. And I would say that direct the supervisor to, we'd all like to, that Marquette Township would not like to be split. It wants to be one group again with whatever township or city part we have to be, but we don't want to be split again. Because I know the county clerk's not going to want to, they're going to basically go in precincts. So one in Marquette Township, 1 and 2 will be together again. And we need an odd number of commissioners, and that's up to them to decide what they should have. But I don't like 6 because you can have a 3-3 vote all the time and it won't pass.
Or we'll have to follow him into the bathroom.
No, don't go there.
Are you making that into a motion, Randy?
Yeah,
I'll
so,
support that motion then.
so my motion will be is we direct the supervisor to write a letter and probably, can you attend that
Yeah,
meeting?
I'll go to.
No, you have another meeting.
Oh, yeah, yes, we do at 2 o'clock.
Oh, this is Friday.
I know.
So is there,
Oh, you got another?
Yeah. And we can't move that either, can we? Well, I can at least write the letter. Maybe
Can we
can you
direct
go?
someone else to go?
Yeah, I can zoom in or go one or the other, but
Okay,
just as long as we have board representation there.
yeah.
So my motion will be to direct the supervisor to write a letter on behalf of the board that Marquette Township would like to be one district again. And we support having an odd number of county commissioners. I don't think we have to go any further than that.
no, that's great.
Okay, and you seconded?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Any questions for Roger? Good? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. Linda, let's get a planning commission update, if you would, please.
Okay, the planning commission met on Wednesday, September 22nd at 7 PM here in the Township Hall. We, under new business, we discussed the special use permit hearing for the short-term rental on some property located in Trowbridge Park. The motion was made and carried for that special use permit. The second public hearing was on the heritage silos. There was much discussion, and at the end, the motion was made and carried. We discussed the 2022 CIP request. Some things were withdrawn, and we're assuming that we'll have all that information soon and be able to make some recommendations. And that was it.
Okay.
Other questions, John?
I have a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
As our representative on the planning commission, it would be good if we could poll the members of the planning commission and see how accommodating it would be if the planning commission meetings were to be rescheduled to be conducted during the business hours of the township, so that representatives from the township wouldn't be asked to attend after hours. I know that we have gone through a lot of sessions about the public and whatnot, and we don't have the attendance that we desire, but I think it's about time for us to consider cutting costs to the township for after-hours participation by employees, if it would be acceptable for the members of the planning commission to attend at an earlier hour.
I can bring that to them.
Thank you.
And I forgot to mention also, I did mention we were doing some strategic planning and that the public was invited and they expressed interest in attending that. So you may see Jim Johnson there for sure, I'm thinking. Okay. Roads. Pete, you said you didn't meet tonight.
Did not. We should have more information by next week. I mean, by next meeting, I should say, and see where we stand as far as the road soft is concerned, when we're gonna get that done. John knows more about it than I do.
Okay, so that's the
So-
November 2nd meeting, then you're figuring you'll have more
I hope
information.
so, yes. And then, I know the county was round, brushing back a little bit today. And also we had our street sweeper out there, so that helps.
Okay.
So can I ask Pete a question?
Sure, go ahead, Linda.
So Pete, is the street sweeper the counties or is it the townships?
Counties.
That's the county.
So they were sweeping the streets? And then
Yes.
how do they decide, and maybe you don't know this, how do they decide where to brush back? Because on the corner of Norwood and Ontario,
Yeah, that's
you
how
can't
many-
see around to get out. There's a house there with shrubbery, I'll say. Do we just tell someone?
Pete froze
I
up.
had a phone call to the Light and Power today to ask Sean about that. What's their plans, how do they plan something like that, so I can have something to report. And, he didn't get back to me yet, but
Okay.
it seems like they have a pushing contest between the Light and Power and also the Road Commission as far as cutting back the trees. I mean, if you go over on Cherry Street off of Woodridge, it's like a little tunnel. And there's a bunch of old trees falling down, and it just, another one's over on the corner of Cox and Moran. They got it marked, but they've been having it marked for a long time, and it's very frustrating. I mean, we try to take care of the roads, but they don't seem to take care of their part, so.
Erickson and Warner too. We cut it back, but it grew back.
Yes, it is. There's lots of them. I got a list I've been working on, and, well, that will come up at the next meeting.
Well, I wonder if the committee could compile the list. I'm sure there's other committee members that know other streets too, and
Well, we've had,
get it to the road commission.
yeah. I'm working on that, and I'll get everyone else has compiled the list, and then we'll turn it over to Eric. And then, I'm gonna have a lunch with a couple of people from the road committee, Bill and that, because he's back in town now. And I just take him for a little ride and say, oh, look at that, you know? What a surprise. So, no, I mean, they're very good people to work with and talk to and stuff like that. And Bill he is for the township people, so he just says, well, tell me sometime. So sometimes I say, well, I'm not supposed to tell you, but here it is, you know, one of those deals. But I am working on it, and hopefully by this month. This last couple weeks have been kind of screwed up, and I've been having a bad 2 years with between my ankle and my infections and stuff like that. But the good thing, I'm all cleared up with the virus, and I lost 4 pounds. Whoopie ding.
So that brings you into the events committee, right? Because that's an event?
Yeah. Right, and that's John. The only thing I know is that we're all set for November for tree lighting, and John attended the meeting today. And he'll probably follow up on that.
The date again, Pete, on that? November,
That was November.
the 20-something?
Yeah, it was the Tuesday before
23rd.
Thanksgiving. 23rd.
23rd, correct.
At 6 or 5? 6.
John, did you change it?
No, we did not. It should be the same time as prior years.
Right.
Yep.
Because it's dark early that time of year, so,
Right, exactly.
okay.
We used to do it right before the board meetings, that's why it was 6 o'clock. So we'd run over there, do the tree lighting, and then come back.
Well, the thing is, the students don't get off the buses from the elementary schools until 4:15 or 4:20, so 5 o'clock's way too early.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
6
Yeah,
o'clock.
so unfortunately, yeah.
Okay, anything else? Anything you wanted to add, John?
I just wanted to mention, I did happen to see what the road commission was out there doing, where they're pruning back the branches. Based on what I know happens this time of year for road networks, they are brushing their plow routes to protect their trucks from being destroyed by low-hanging branches. I'm sure that's what they're doing. You know, I'll stand corrected if that's not true, but I'm certain that's what they're doing. They're pruning back the low-hanging branches to protect their plow trucks this winter.
Well, there are, I was telling you before, I think I counted 3 branches on the power lines on Grove Street when you
Yeah.
leave 492, before you get to our well road. They're just laying right on the power lines. Now, the power lines are pretty thick, you can tell, and there's 2 or 3 of them. So the branches themselves probably aren't gonna hurt that, but that doesn't
Yes,
make
it
sense.
does. It does bother them.
Yeah. So, you can just see them, they're just right there. But- Okay, anything, okay. Any public comments, emails?
No,
Do we have any public that wants to comment?
no.
Probably not, okay. Announcements, anything anybody wants to share? Anything going on? Okay, how about the manager's report?
You have my written report. I also have a couple of things I'd like to mention verbally. First, contract negotiations are progressing. I will withhold judgment on how successful I think they are going. I think we're headed in the right direction. We have a counter proposal from one of the bargaining units, and we will be meeting with the other this Friday afternoon. So hopefully by our next meeting, we will have counter offers from both bargaining units to present to you in closed session at your next meeting. Also, we received a note, anonymous note addressed to Sir, and normally these things we don't really spend too much time dealing with them, but the concern that's expressed here is a legitimate concern in that the multi-use path on Ontario was recently extended as part of that Phase 2 project. It is a narrower than normal multi-use path. I want to say it's probably 6 feet wide. So if you have cyclists overtaking walkers, there isn't a lot of room to pass. And this concern is from an elderly walker who is hard of hearing that's concerned about the cyclist being on the bike path and not hearing them coming. So what I wanted to say, first of all, whoever wrote the note, thank you for pointing out this issue. The cyclists should be slowing down and warning you as they approach, and if they don't see you reacting, hopefully they're going to slow down even more until there's an acknowledgement between both users that they're sharing the same space. It's what I try to teach my kids when we use the multi-use paths around town all the way out to Harvey. But I should also be clear that both users have the right to be there. It's not a walking path, it's a multi-use path. So hopefully everyone can learn to be nice, say hi, slow down, share the trail, and everyone can get along just fine, knowing full well that some users do have impairments that need to be accommodated. So hopefully the cyclists out there on Ontario will recognize that not everyone can hear you coming. Maybe more of them will buy a bell to put on their handlebars like I put on my bike. I think that really helps in notifying walkers as you're approaching from behind. In fact, generally when I ring my bell to a walker on the bike path, they usually respond with at least a smile or a wave. Very few people are offended by the fact that I'm notifying them of my presence by ringing a bell. they actually appreciate it, so something for everyone to consider. I know there's 4 bike shops in town that would be happy to sell people a bell for their bike.
Isn't it, and maybe Roger knows this, but my understanding is that bicycles go with traffic. Now, those paths are not sidewalks, because I thought that bikes can't be on sidewalks, but those are not sidewalks. So what prevails, Roger? Do they need to be on the road with the car traffic, or because it's a path, they can be on the path?
They're
The bike.
two-way,
The bike.
usually. If, it's a single path, and they should be on the path, the bicyclists, that they should be on the path rather than out in the traffic. So if they're going to the store and heading north, then they're gonna come back on the same path, heading south. And it's pretty much rules of the road that you adhere to the right side of the path if you're a bicyclist.
Okay, thanks for that
Lynn?
clarification. Yep.
Just a short note that for people's interest, when they're on the road and that bike path there, the cars are supposed to stay away 3 feet away from that bike when they're going past them. That's a law. So if
Anywhere in the
they're-
right-of-way,
Pardon me?
anywhere in the public right-of-way.
Right, 3 feet away
Motorists
from
need
that.
to give cyclists 3 feet of space per current state law.
Okay. Is that it for the manager? Any questions for him? Okay. Randy, you want to review the motions?
Okay, first motion was to approve the consent agenda as presented. That was approved. And second motion was to approve the regular agenda as presented. That was approved. Action item will be October 14th. We'll get a board photo at 2 p.m. before our work session, so make sure you dress up. Third motion was to appoint Karen Blake to the road committee with the term ending 12/31/21, and that was approved. The fourth motion was to approve the resolution affirming the vacate certain undeveloped portions of Wright Street, Cox Avenue within the plat of Trowbridge Park, and that was approved by roll call vote. Fifth motion was to dissolve the safety committee, and that was approved. The sixth motion was to schedule a work session, strategic planning, Thursday, October 28th at 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and that was approved for strategic planning. And the seventh motion was to direct the supervisor to write a letter to the County Apportionment Commission explaining that Marquette Township would like to be back into one district, and we would like to have an odd number of commissioners, and that was approved.
Okay, thank you. So for the next agenda, for right now, we'll just look at the MTA policy platform again. Any board member comment? Linda?
I personally am concerned about the post-it pass and do not pass signs that were placed on Ontario Avenue. So the speed limit is too fast, in my opinion, to begin with, but now we have post-it signs that say you can pass and when you cannot pass, and I'm concerned about that.
Probably because it's a county road, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but I'm still concerned, and we just had a concern about a bike path in the very same road. So, it's my comment for tonight.
Okay, Ernie?
I'm going back to the minutes from the Marquette County Solid Waste and that. If you read through the minutes, they're talking about one part of the landfill is on track to reach $1 million in revenue for the year on commodities. If you go back in time, some of that dollars was supposed to be split up and sent back to the townships from what they put into them. And I haven't seen anything of that, and to be honest with you, I don't think we're ever gonna see it in that. But when I read that $1 million, I said, wait a minute now. Some of that should be coming back to us as a user in that. Now, this is a number of years ago that they brought this up, that they're gonna do something like this. So
I read it, look at it. I know there's probably little we can do about it, but I want to still bring it up in that too, so.
Yeah, I remember that vaguely. Thanks for that, I guess. I was gonna share just one thing. This is in the Michigan Township Association's board. I found it, I was cleaning my desk today, and I found this. And it says, a trustee, which is all of us, even though including the officers, just because we're officers, we're still a trustee for the township, is an individual placed in a position of public trust with fiduciary responsibilities to manage the affairs of the township for the best interests of the public. So that's what we have to do. We're supposed to do. And I think we do, but it was a nice big thing, and I thought I'd share it. Kind of like show and tell. What else? Anything? Anybody else sharing?
I'll move to adjourn then.
Support.
Okay, 8:11. So we have a work session at 2 o'clock on Thursday, the 7th, and our next meeting is October 19th.
Correct.
We are adjourned.